Hi, Caesar. Ready for another episode? All right, let's go. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love my country. However, having the opportunity to live outside the U.S. borders for an extended period of time has given me some perspective and some opinions that I might not otherwise have held if I was still living inside the good old U.S.A. Nothing exemplifies this for me more than the current debate over student loan forgiveness. Sure, there are other cultural clashes being fought over gender identity.
I'm not saying those goddamn pronouns.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
Look what I got here! Hey, where are the white women at?
Where exactly the right to free speech begins and ends. And don't worry, I'll get to these issues soon enough. Trust me. But for now, I want to stick with the student loans. Now, to do this properly, to have a proper discussion, we have to agree to accept some items as facts. Fact number 1. Up until very recently, every child, from the moment they started school, was brainwashed into thinking that attending college or university was the only path to true success. It was as if blue-collar jobs were looked upon as lower class, something that meant you did something wrong in life and made poor decisions. I remember in 5th grade, we had woodworking, and if you were put in wood shop and that was where you were going to be all day, it meant that you were a loser. It meant that you came from a bad family. It meant you were going nowhere. It meant your life has already been decided for you.
It's not going to be like grammar school, that's why. You're taking your college courses, and me, Teddy, and Vern, well, we'll be in the shop courses with the rest of the retards making ashtrays and birdhouses. You're going to meet a lot of new guys. Smart guys.
Fact number 2. Colleges and universities themselves are set up as a type of competitive process that, in and of itself, places young people into subclasses and subsets of the population, and, in their own way, determines future success. Don't believe me? Then why are high school kids given a class rank? This isn't the military. These are fucking high school students. Should their performance at such a young age determine their entire future? So let's look at an example. One student is ranked number 1 in their class. They got into all the right classes, and they showed an aptitude for studying and taking tests. Another student was more interested in being a kid and didn't exactly apply themselves in the same way, but they can read, and they can write, and they can think on the same level as the first student. This second student just decided to experience their childhood differently. And maybe it wasn't their decision. Maybe they were more interested in sports, or maybe they had to have a part-time job to help their family, or God forbid came from an environment where they needed to worry about survival instead of studying. So the first student, they get accepted to Harvard, where they study the law. The second student gets into their local state university, where they also study the law. Now, from what I understand, the law is the law. It doesn't change depending on what university you attend. However, when these two students graduate from their respective universities and pass the bar exam in their respective state, one will have a distinct advantage over the other, simply because of name recognition. It's a brand. The Harvard Law brand will give that graduate a better job, a better pay, a better life overall. Why? Did the Harvard graduate learn things about the law that only Harvard has a right to teach? No, of course not. It's all about pedigree. It's about status. Which university you attend becomes another measure of classification, and this classification is determined by how you perform in the middle of your most turbulent, emotional, and confusing part of your life. As a teenager. Imagine that. Your entire life is predicated upon what you do as a teenager. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, I was a fucking idiot. And I was considered a smart kid. A nerd. But I was still an idiot. Simply having a resume that states you graduated from Harvard gives you a distinct advantage in life. Even though no matter what you study, the subject matter does not change depending on the institution. Believe me, I know. I have both an undergraduate and a postgraduate degree. Fact number 3. Colleges and universities are a business. The greater the prestige, the bigger the tuition. Average cost of attending Harvard for 1 year, $79,000. Average cost of attending UMass, $16,000. One is a private university, one is a public university. This is an incredible difference in price. But is it an incredible difference in the quality of the education being offered? That is up for debate, but I, as someone who attended both a private and public university for my different degrees, would say this: no, there's not much of a difference at all. What you are paying for is the name. This is part of the consumerism that has now surrounded the college experience. Harvard is the Louis Vuitton of the college experience, and UMass is your Walmart brand. Now, if we're going to look at college from a strictly business model perspective, we need to factor in things like sports. Some of these universities, they have sports franchises that rival professional teams in terms of TV contracts, clothing sales, ticket sales, and corporate sponsorships. In short, some universities are making hundreds of millions of dollars because of non-academic activities. And I have no problem with this. The more money you can make, the better. However, is this money going back to the school? Is this money being shared with the student body? And if so, how? Now, some universities, through their very presence, enable the towns and small cities they reside in to exist because of the hospitality industry needed to support the college athletics. Just take a trip to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Norman, Oklahoma, College Point, Texas, or South Bend, Indiana to see what I mean. And I've been to them all. These are less institutions of learning and more institutions of pop culture in the form of a sports team. As well, these colleges, through not only their athletics departments, but through their financial investments, are making even more millions. Some say billions. Yale has an endowment fund of around $38 billion. Some of that money was invested by the university into a hedge fund, making over $480 million each year in 2016 alone and upwards. And no, all of that money did not go to alleviate tuition costs. Yale, like Harvard and other private universities, have become the butt of a joke. That these are merely mutual funds with a university attached. Universities are becoming some of the richest corporations in the country, yet tuition costs are skyrocketing every year. Still don't think that higher education is a business instead of a model for learning? Wait until your children get to be 16 or 17 years old. Your mailbox will be stuffed with brochures and postcards and mailers from colleges and universities from all over the country, advertising themselves in the hopes that they can get your child to apply.
Well, there really is no junk mail. Oh, everybody wants to get a check or a birthday card, but
It requires just as much manpower to deliver as their precious little greeting cards. No, man! No!
Fact number 4. The government loves to give bailouts. Just not to you. And if you're as old as I am, you remember 2008. You remember the housing collapse. You remember the news stories of the shady, predatory lending practices that led to approximately 10 million families losing their homes. You remember the panic that the world economy would collapse into depression. You remember that the government moved with rapid speed to offer hundreds of billions of dollars to a banking system so they could stay in business and cover their losses from decades of abuse and corruption catching up with them. You remember that no one was arrested. No one was held accountable. No one went to jail for this massive transfer of wealth to the rich. In fact, the rich got richer. The poor, the unemployed, the homeless, they were left with crumbs to survive on and foreclosure notices as police escorted them out of their own homes. I did not get a check. My friends and neighbors who lost their life savings did not get a check. The elderly in my city who were retired on a small pension and budget and who now had to re-enter the workforce and become Walmart greeters and taxi cab drivers just to survive did not get a check. But for some odd reason, the media was okay with this. Conservatives were okay with this. Democrats were okay with this. trillions of dollars were given away to the real wealthy elite, even though 1/4 of American families lost 75% of their personal wealth. More than half lost 25% of their personal wealth. I know. I was one of those people who had to explain to my wife that our 401k and our children's college funds had disappeared almost overnight and that we would have to start from scratch. Since 2008, the standard of living for almost 60% of American families has been from paycheck to paycheck. Just one bad day, just one medical emergency, just one accident away from total bankruptcy and abject poverty. So when I hear a pundit on television complain about the immorality of canceling student debt because it only benefits a few wealthy white elite, I get infuriated.
The president did not become a king overnight. And that's exactly what this president tried to do. I'll start with the student loan forgiveness for a second. You know, for those saying that the Republicans have all of a sudden been responsible for taking away the money, it wasn't your money to begin with, Mr. President. And so the fact that he, I say in a stolen valor fashion, tried to use the HEROES Act to somehow create funds that went toward students that would have had people on the hook for them that are still working hard, 9 to 5, 2 jobs, 4 jobs, so people can enjoy their lofty degrees, has no place in this democratic country.
Now that we have these facts in mind, here are some real statistics you need to know. The total student loan debt in the United States right now is $1.75 trillion. The average debt per borrower is $28,950. And now you might ask yourself, does student debt cancellation favor the wealthy white? No, this is a lie. 47% of all women have student loan debt. 50% of all black adults have student loan debt. And also, they carry the highest average balance of debt among any minority. 44% of white adults are second in this list. 37% of Hispanic and Latino are third on this list. Do these statistics still make you think that student loan debt is something only rich white doctors and lawyers have in common? The issue of student loan debt is being spun into a type of political class warfare by conservative media. They want those without student debt to be angry with those who do have student debt. They want those who did not have to take out loans for college, or those who had the means or ability to pay for school or pay their loans off, to stand up and block President Biden's promise to wipe out the $1.75 trillion currently weighing on a part of the American public. And this is wrong. It is irresponsible for any news organization to try and turn one part of the public against another. It only sows hatred and division and isolates us from each other. The point I'm trying to make is this. You may agree or disagree with the canceling of student loan debt, and that's your right. What I encourage you to do is this. Make your decision on this issue from a place of logic and of reasoning. Do not make your decision based on anger or hatred of people you do not know, have never met, nor understand the circumstances of their lives. Do not listen to pundits who make buckets of money by making you angry. These people do not care about you. They only care about their ratings and their paychecks. If you want to be angry at something, be angry at the academic institutions who have increased their tuition rates 169% since 1980. Be angry at a public school system that does not encourage blue-collar trade jobs as a viable alternative to our teenagers' futures. Be angry at the academic institutions who are making hundreds of millions of dollars, yet still complicit in burdening millions of your fellow citizens with debt that stymies their ability to save for the future, pay their bills, buy a home, or purchase medicine when needed. Be angry at the government who is happy to give away trillions of your tax dollars to corporations where you will never see any of the benefits, while your neighbors are thrown to the streets, live in their cars, or die because they cannot afford the medical care they need when they get sick. Be angry at the government because their only solution after the 2008 financial crisis was to make it harder for everyday citizens to receive a mortgage, while the banking institutions that caused the crisis used your money for fat executive bonuses and company retreats complete with massages and limitless buffets. Be angry that you're being lied to by the conservative media. This is an issue that affects minorities and women the most. To be dishonest about this is nothing short of racism and misogyny. Be angry at a Supreme Court, whose conservative majority blocked President Biden from giving student loan borrowers a fraction of the relief afforded to all of the big banks. Even the ones that were bailed out this past year because they mismanaged their own business. It's okay to be angry, but be angry at the right people. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the subscribe button, leaving a like and a comment, and turning on the notification bell so you know when I upload my next video. As always, for Caesar and for me, from somewhere south of the border, salud and away.